Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Hello everyone, good day. Let me introduce myself. My name is Tasya Wulandari and I am from 5B class. In this great opportunity, I would like to tell you about the qualitative data analysis. But actually, I am focusing to telling you far about the qualitative data analysis techniques. Principally and procedurally, the qualitative data analysis techniques are very different from the quantitative data analysis techniques because the process of collecting qualitative data, which generally focuses on interviews and observations, that makes the data analysis in the form of textual analysis of the result of the field nodes. And also, unlike quantitative research where the raw data seems ready to be analyzed, the opposite, the qualitative data analysis techniques tend to use data that is not ready to be processed. Therefore, a systematic process in data processing needs to be applied. Go on to the next slide. Before explaining further about the technicalities that I just told you before, that I am focusing in telling you about the techniques, I need to state first some of the main principles in qualitative data analysis, such as the approach and basic operations, because even though it is important to understand at a glance these basic principles, the implementation of the technical steps carried out later is in accordance with scientific principles. So, what is approaches in qualitative data analysis? In general, there are at least two approaches in qualitative data analysis. First is induction, and the second is grounded analysis. Induction analysis approach is the analysis with this approach starts from the hypothesis that has been held by the researchers before going to the field. With the character is similar to the actual quantitative approach, but more open to field findings. After going to the field, the researchers checks whether the data obtained confirms or disproves the hypothesis. If the field data finds cases that refute the hypothesis, so the researchers moves to the two options. The first is redefine the hypothesis to exclude cases that are deviant, refute the hypothesis, or reformulate the hypothesis itself. Redefining the hypothesis and excluding any deviant findings will lead to the completion of the analysis process. Meanwhile, reformulating the hypothesis will lead to the examination or even collection of field data again. For example, the researchers that will be conducted is about consumption of Islamic literature for young people in the capital city who decided to immigrate. So the researchers compiled research questions to determine what types of Islamic literature were consumed by youth who choose to migrate. The hypothesis developed is that young people in the capital city who migrate tend to consume Islamic literature written or produced by groups related to Indonesian Islamic organizations such as Nahdlatul Ulum or NU and Muhammadiyah and so on. So the result of the interviews and observations show that it turns out that those who migrate tend to consume translated Islamic books written by Middle Eastern scholars. Thus, the data do not support the hypothesis. So that's why the process of induction analysis provides an opportunity for the researchers to redefine the hypothesis or reformulate the hypothesis. It means that we can say that the qualitative research is always open to the field findings. Therefore, the data analysis process almost never stops at one point only. Next, I will review qualitative data analysis techniques with a grounded theory approach. This approach has a longer this approach has a longer process and is more commonly applied in many qualitative research. A grounded theory is analysis approach is qualitative analysis with grounded theory has been widely used among social researchers. Grounded theory as the absence of a hypothesis in the initial research process. For the record, it doesn't mean the hypothesis is impossible to develop. In short, the researchers makes research question without thinking about the hypothesis in his head first. However, researchers continue to conduct literature's reviews to find out theories that have been applied in research with related topics. The theoretical knowledge from existing studies is used to be developed by applying theoretical sampling. So what is the theoretical sampling? According to the process of the theoretical sampling is the process of collecting data to produce a theory in which the researchers collects, codes, and analyzed the data and decided what kind of data he wants to collect and where to get it in order to develop the theory he is developing. From this definition, we understand that the theoretical sampling is an ongoing process or not a final result. Go on to the next slide is about after theoretical sampling, a grounded approach takes the researchers to collect the field data. The next process after data is collecting data collected is coding. Coding is one of the key steps in applying qualitative data analysis techniques. So let's start the qualitative data analysis technique steps from the coding. What is coding? Coding is a basic step in operationalization of qualitative data analysis. At the coding stage, it means that initial field data have been collected. However, it is possible for researchers to go to the field again to collect more data. Thus, qualitative research tends to shape the circulation process in its analysis. The coding process is also go on to the next slide. The coding process is also called indexing. The researchers coded the font text or narrative data. Coding can be done manually or using qualitative data analysis software such as Atlas.ti or NVivo. For example, a transcript of an imaginary interview shows the following narrative. For example, is the interview asking the interviewed, is there an Islamic book that has changed your way of thinking so that you decided to emigrate? Then the interviewed said that I like reading the writings of contemporary Islamic scholars from the West such as John and so on. John L. Esposito and Tariq Ramadan. Go on to the next slide. Researchers can code the text into so that the researchers, after getting the answers from the interviewed or from the informant, the researchers can code the text into the Middle Eastern literature, for example, or it could be written with a statement why you like reading. It can say that various ways of coding can be used to facilitate systematic analysis efforts. The next slide, it is the next steps of the qualitative data analysis techniques. It is create a draft. The result of data after we have the result data coding that shows and translated Islamic books from foreign authors have inspired many young people who consume them to emigrate. Researchers need to recheck field data or even collect data again to ascertain whether the new data are needed or not. If the data is saturated, the coding results can be used as a concept. Middle Eastern literature is a concept. Researchers can interpret what is meant by Middle Eastern literature, what is meant by NU literature, what is meant by Muhammadian literature, and other literatures, according to the field data. Then go on to the next slide. Is about the next step is create categories. After the concept used are clear, the researcher can arrange the categories. For example, making a list of which information statements are included in Middle Eastern literature, local literature, and so on. Making categories or categorization is not rigid. Researchers can do this by coming up with other terms that have been mentioned by the informants in the interview. For example, a pop Islamic book, a radial Islamic book, and so on. The next step, the researchers explores the relationship between each category and ensures that the data, usually in the form of text or narrative, fall into the appropriate categories. The next steps of the qualitative data analysis techniques is make a hypothesis. From the categories that have been compiled, the researchers can make a hypothesis. For example, young people in the capital who have migrated prefer to read Middle Eastern literature rather than Islamic literature from Nahdlatul Muhammad or Muhammadiyah. This hypothesis is so that books by local authors do not encourage people to migrate or are only read by young people who do not need to emigrate. Of course, the hypothesis must be tested first. And we are arrived at the last steps in the qualitative data analysis techniques. It is obtain analysis result. As previously stated, qualitative data analysis is almost always not linear. Researchers go to the field, go to work again, go to field again, and so on to get the qualitative result. Qualitative research has an emphasis on the quality of researchers' result, not quantity. After the hypothesis is tested, the researcher can confirm existing theories, develop theories, or create new theories. So the result of the analysis are the results of studies that are ready to be tested and presented to the public or to the society. I think that's all about my presentation today. Thank you for your great attention, and wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.